Welcome everybody, this is video number 5 in our Pigeon Genetics video series. This week we are talking about Dilute. Last week was recessive red, which is an autosomal recessive, meaning that both pigeons need to carry 2 copies of the gene for it to show. This week Dilute is a sex-linked recessive gene, meaning the cocks need to have 2 copies, but the hens, being that it's sex-linked, only have the space for 1 copy. That's why you'll often see more silvers in hens, more yellows in hens, and so on. But simply put, Dilute cuts the pigment in half. They say by 50%. I've never actually measured it, but it cuts the pigment in half. It takes a blue bar and turns it into a silver bar. So this is the most common example that you'll see. Now, I mentioned kind of in video 1 about why we call it a blue bar, that the bars are actually black and the shield is blue. Lots of times you'll hear people call silver bars silver dun bars. And like I said in that other video, that's correct, but that's the same thing as calling this a blue-black bar. So it's just, it's one of those things. I just call them silver bars. But yeah, the bird is silver, the bars are dun. If you take a look at them, you can tell that the bars, when you look particularly at the tail bar, the bar color is different and the tail is different. But all it is just the Dilute gene added on to this. These birds are actually 2 different breeds, but you can't even tell them apart visually. Now, the Dilute gene also suppresses. Here's an ash red bar. And here's its dilute form, a cream bar. People also call them ash yellow bars. They're also called Isabellas, which isn't just a pigeon term, it's actually used in dogs and horses too. Now let me just say, this ash red bar isn't just an ash red bar. He has other genes that we haven't talked about yet added onto him, which is why you see the red in the shield. He has the dirty gene. But if you just visualize that not being there and just the ashy color, you dilute that and this is what you get. Turns really white. It's not pure white, but it's an off-white. I guess it's kind of hard to tell without a comparison next to it. But yeah, cream bars are interesting. They get the gray head similar to the ashes, and then they get the nice yellow chest and neck. And then the tails, pretty much just an off-white. Now, with the browns, I don't have any brown bars, but what I have is in the spread form, this is just a regular brown. And then this is a Dilute brown. Let me grab the other one so we can see the difference. Come on. But you can tell this Dilute in my right hand is a lot lighter than that one. I showed you the yellow last week. We talked about recessive reds. Here's another red. And then here's the Dilute form of yellow. And it's pretty clear to see the difference in these. And then here's a black. This is one of my tumblers, which is also what that silver bar was. That blue bar I showed you in the beginning's a tippler. These are both tumblers. So this is a black, and this is a Dilute black, which is a dun. We call these duns now because it's just the tail color, it's the bar color that's being shown. They make a nice charcoal black or a nice deep gray. It's easier to see it in the flights. They fade more. And then I also brought in a silver T pattern. I didn't bring in a blue T pattern, but you can get the idea. You can tell from the tail that it's a silver, and then silver T pattern. Now let me mention, dilutes also have short down in the nest. You can always tell you have a dilute because in the nest it will be not completely naked, but pretty much naked of the yellow down feathers. And I'll show you a picture since I don't have any babies. I do show babies in our brown versus dun video, and I'll link to that at the end of this video. But they always have short down in the nest, so you know right away that you have a dilute. And going back to what we talked about in video 1 with it being sex-linked, oftentimes you can tell if it's a cock or hen. For instance, now when dealing with dilutes, if you say intense is just like to say a regular colored bird. So like a blue bar would be intense, a silver bar is dilute. So if you breed any intense, like say you have 2 blue bars and you get a silver bar out, you automatically know it's a hen. Because since it's a sex-linked gene, if the hen has the gene, she's showing it. And since the cock always gives his gene to the hen, and the hen to the cock, and then the cock gives another one of his genes to his cock, you know that your hen, you know that your dilute's a cock, because the cock can hide the dilute gene. So that means 25% of the time the cock's making dilutes. Or you could say 50% of the hens are going to be dilute. The cock's giving that one gene to the hen. Now if you have 2 blue bars, or if you have say, let's say a silver bar hen to a blue bar cock, unless the cock is split for dilute, you're not going to get any dilute offspring. All your cocks will not carry dilute, they'll be split dilute or heterozygous dilute, but you're not going to get any dilute hens because the cock's just giving his regular blue gene to the hen. Now if you have a silver bar cock to a blue bar hen, then you're going to have, all your hens are going to be dilute, because for the cock to be dilute, he has 2 genes. So he has to give one of those 2, which are the same, he gives to the hen. So she automatically becomes dilute. The hen gives her blue gene or intense gene to the cock, and he gives one of his dilute genes to them. So all your cocks will now be split for dilute. Now if you have the same thing, a silver bar hen, or any dilute, it could be reds, yellows, let's say reds. If you have a red cock to a yellow hen, and you get a yellow offspring or dilute offspring, whatever color you're working with, you now don't know if it's a hen or cock because it's no longer sex-linked. That means that your cock is split for dilute. So if you have a yellow hen and a cock that's recessive red and carries the dilute gene, she gives her yellow gene to the cock, and now 50% of the time he's giving his red gene, which just means it's going to be a red split for dilute. And the other 50% of the time, he's giving his dilute gene, which gives it 2 yellow genes, and therefore you can get yellow cocks. So, yeah. Now, dilute's not the only thing that dilutes the pigment of the bird. It is the most common. But there is another gene called pale, which basically does the same thing dilute does, only it does only half of it. Now, this bird here is a pale. This one's the dilute here that I showed you next to the other brown. You can see that this one's a little darker, not too much, but a little bit. Now let me grab the brown. Now you can still see now the brown's a little darker. So it's basically halfway between dilute and just an intense color. Now the thing with pales is, like dilutes have almost no down feathers at all. They have a little bit, because they're pretty much naked. Pales is halfway. They have a little bit of down feather, more than dilutes, but not as much as intense. They're not the fuzzy yellows. I also wanted to mention, I talked about how dilute makes the short down. Almond also does it as well. Almond will give you naked down, so those aren't dilute, they're just almonds. And I just got almonds now in my Uzbek crab tumblers. However, I haven't bred any yet, so I don't have first-hand experience just from what I've read and seen pictures of online. But from what I've seen with almonds is they're completely naked, while dilutes still have a tiny bit of yellow fuzz. So I just wanted to mention that in case somebody's working almond and dilute. You might have some confusion there. At 6:20 in the video, I made an error by saying, so you know it's a cock. What I meant to say is, you know it came from a cock. So again, if you had 2 blacks that you got a dun out of, you know that that done's a hen because Dilute is a sex-linked recessive, so you need 2 copies of the gene for it to be there. But if both your parents were visibly black, then that means the cock is the one hiding the gene, because if the hen had the gene, since it's sex-linked, she'd automatically show it. So therefore, the cock gave that one gene to the hen, and it became Dilute. So that's how you can always tell if you have, you can tell right away in that situation that it's a Dilute, and that's a hen, is what I mean. Also, what I wanted to say is, I talked about the pale. You have intense, which would just be a blue bar, dilute, a silver bar, and then you have the pale that's in between the two. There's not a fancy term for that. It's just a pale blue bar. And then a dilute, we call them silver bars, the phenotype, but genetically it's just a dilute blue bar. And then there's also extreme dilute. Those they call lemons, because like a dilute blue makes it a silver with dun bars. A dilute lemon makes it a cream colored bird, a cream colored shield with a yellow bar. I'll post a picture of that. So, and extreme dilute, and pale are all allies of each other. That simply means that those 3 genes all occupy the same spot, the same locus on the chromosome. And a locus is just one specific location. So you can have a bird that's extreme dilute, heterozygous dilute. That bird's just going to show as a dilute because dilute is dominant to extreme dilute. And there's also other things that dilute or reduce the pigment color. There's a gene called reduced. This is on a totally separate locus, so it operates a different spot. Now it's still sex-linked, but it operates another spot. And this gene just reduces the pigment, and it turns the bird to an off-white color with pinkish or rusty colored bars or whatever the pattern is. But that's it. Stay tuned for next week, and we will talk about the 3 darkening patterns, which are dirty, smoky, and sooty.